I'm Rob from HopZine.com. Thanks for joining me for another video beer review. This time we are looking at a bottle of Imperial Extra Double Stout from Harvey's and Son in Lewes, East Sussex, 9% ABV. This review is dedicated to the good man, Terry K, over at Beer Goggles Review. Terry says this is probably the best beer he's ever had. It's a 2008 bottle. I bought this from a pub in York. The fellow who served me, who was the landlord, it says it's the first bottle he's ever sold, which is a lie because I bought them there before actually. I think back then they had corks and a crown on it as well. But yeah, in 2008, we're currently halfway through 2013. Not going to put all that in. Oh yes, definitely a bit of sediment in there. But yeah, Terry always refers to it as Albert Lecoq. He knows a lot more about it than I do, but yeah. There we go. Beer in the glass, as you'd expect. Black as night, a nice, thick, quite dark brown, quite creamy looking head on that. So let's give it a sniff, see what it's all about. Oh wow, how interesting. The first thing that greets me is the lactic character of alembic. It's got that kind of tart, acidic, cider vinegar kind of nose, definitely licorice, a synthetic cherry note, definitely a slightly tar. But yeah, I think it is meant to be slightly kind of slightly lactic and slightly kind of like acidic and stuff. Is this? Yeah, slightly rotten raspberries. Something like fresh like potting kind of like soil. But definitely that kind of lactic note is right at the forefront. This has been, I think it's been kept in the fridges, I mean, for years and years. It's never been touched because no one's ever bought it. It's been sat there under, decent, probably a little bit cooler than it should have been, but that's really surprising. It doesn't have a lot of stout notes, but definitely has that kind of lactic note of a lambic. Anyway, it's going to be interesting. Let's dive in. Cheers. Cheers, Terry. Definitely a lot more stouty in the flavour. Really drinkable actually. At the front you do continue to get that lactic note, which means a slightly kind of sourness. Definitely going to say something like balsamic vinegar. That's at the forefront. Then like a black forest gatto really kind of opens up. This time the cherry's a lot more kind of fresh, chocolatey, that kind of like kirsch, I guess, that kind of that cherry liqueur. Slightly off, kind of soured cream actually. Camp coffee, tobacco. There's definitely a kind of like a slightly burnt wheaty note, something a bit like Shreddies, like breakfast cereal. There is quite a lot of carbonation. The back end, that sourness is continuing, but you're getting a more of a real burnt kind of charcoaly note, really intense burnt molasses. Yeah, it really grows. There's that kind of burnt note. It's more burnt than roasty. And not very chocolatey. There is a slightly chocolatey note in there. Ending bitter from dark malt and like roasted barley. Quite dry. Yeah, kind of a it's not pithy, but it's a dry kind of burnt bitterness that if you've absolutely incinerated a piece of kind of brown bread, and the acidity and tartness and bitterness of that carbon. It's really interesting. This is a very traditional beer. I'll be fascinated to have a newer bottle and to see if I don't know how often they brew this beer actually. I don't know if this was the last time they brewed it, but they still sell it on the website. And that lactic note is really confusing and surprising. And if it's meant to be there, I think that's fantastic because it's so unique. I mean, a lot of modern breweries doing kind of stuff which is influenced by America would be kind of potentially playing around with these things. You'd think of the I know Durham Brewery up in the northeast did a sour stout, and also the big one that I know is the sour stout that is done by Jolly Pumpkin in America. Madeira Obscura, something like that. But this is as traditional as it comes. And it's going back to a recipe from goodness knows how far back. 1912, first Imperial Extra Double Stout left the brewery. Wow. Yeah, there's loads of information on there talking about Bolsheviks and Eastern Europe and all this kind of business. Dramatic end to a Lecoq venture, blah blah blah. Yeah. Go on the website, find out what you want about it. Actually, go and watch Terry's review because he'll have all the information. His video is probably about 25 minutes long. Mine's going to be about 7. But I think it's really interesting. I think it's very unique. You can definitely kind of like get something. Even when I look at beers from Colonel at their Export Stout, there's something in there which has definitely got a kind of a relationship with this beer. But it's that lactic note. Is it meant to be as prevalent as it is? I don't know. Personally, I'm going to sign off on this video in a minute. I'm going to take this upstairs. I'm probably just going to whack Terry's video on the laptop and sip away at this. Listen to what Terry, listen to some of his pearls of wisdom as he kind of ruminates about this beer. It's really interesting, very unique. I'm glad I've had the opportunity to review it. It's been like maybe about 5 years since I've had a bottle of this. Lovely stuff, but not Imperial Stout as we know it. Anyway, so that is the Imperial Extra Double Stout, 9% ABV from Harvey's in Sussex. Something very unique. I'm enjoying it. Anyway, I'm Rob from HopZine.com. See you next time. Cheers.